I never thought I would tell this story, but my name is Caitlyn, and everything changed on that day when I heard my husband whisper words of love, but not to me. You know, sometimes life tests your strength, and even if you think you're ready for anything, one day reality hits harder than any fear you ever had. I was sitting at the edge of our bed, holding a cup of coffee that had long gone cold, listening to the silence that screamed louder than any argument. At that moment, it felt like the entire world just froze, leaving me alone with a truth I was never prepared to face. I always believed that if someone chose to be with you, it meant they chose you with their whole heart. But it turns out, sometimes, you're just a temporary stop until they find someone who feels more right to them. And that's when I decided this story would no longer be just another page in my life. It would become a lesson. A lesson about how betrayal can break you, but also build you back up, stronger and taller than you ever were before. And if you think hearing "I love you" is always beautiful, just wait until those words aren't meant for you. My name is Caitlyn, and I grew up in a small town where everyone knew each other's names, dreams, and secrets. I used to think it was comforting, the way neighbours would wave as you walked past, or how the woman at the bakery always remembered what kind of bread you liked. My family wasn't perfect, but to me, it was everything. My mum worked at a local library, spending her days surrounded by books and quiet stories that no one else had time to read. My dad was a mechanic, always coming home with oil on his hands and a tired smile on his face. I was their only child, and maybe that's why they loved me so fiercely. Our house was small, painted in a soft yellow colour with white windows that my mum cleaned every weekend until they shone like little mirrors to the outside world. Inside, it smelled of cinnamon, old wood, and warm blankets. I used to spend evenings sitting by the kitchen table, doing homework while my mum prepared dinner, and my dad hummed old songs from his youth. I thought this was what happiness was supposed to look like. Simple, quiet, safe. But even in that small town, life wasn't always fair. I didn't have many friends growing up. I was shy, the kind of girl who would rather read a book than go to a party. The only person who ever truly made me feel like I belonged was my cousin Liam. He was a year older than me, loud and fearless, with a smile that could charm anyone. When we were kids, he used to promise that no matter what happened, he would always protect me. We spent endless summers together, running barefoot through the fields behind my house, sharing secrets under the old oak tree that stood like a silent guardian at the edge of the forest. But as we grew older, things changed. Liam became popular at school. He was good at sports, he dated pretty girls, he threw parties that everyone wanted to go to. I was still the quiet Caitlyn, sitting in the library, lost in stories that didn't belong to me. Sometimes, he would pass by me in the hallway, surrounded by friends, and for a second, his eyes would meet mine, filled with something like sadness. But then, he would look away, as if I was just another face he couldn't risk being seen with. I didn't blame him. I understood. We were different, and life was already pulling us in opposite directions. But I never imagined how far apart we would end up. I thought that blood meant loyalty, that family meant forever. I didn't know then that the same person who promised to protect me would become the one to destroy everything I believed about love, trust, and home. Life has a strange way of showing you who people truly are. For a while, I didn't notice how much Liam was changing. After high school, he started working with my dad at the garage. Everyone said he was talented with cars, that he had hands made for fixing broken things. But what they didn't see was that inside, Liam was starting to break too. He didn't go to college like everyone expected. Instead, he spent his evenings drinking with friends, laughing too loud, coming home long after midnight, with glassy eyes and words that slurred together like melted snow. My parents still loved him like their own son. Mom would make him dinner even if he came home when the sun was rising again. Dad would pat his back and tell him that tomorrow was a new day, that mistakes were just lessons in disguise. And me, I watched him slowly drift away from the boy I used to know, the boy who tied wildflowers into my hair and told me I was the bravest girl in the world. the boy who used to chase away my nightmares by sleeping on the floor next to my bed until the morning came. Sometimes, he would look at me with tired eyes and smile, that same old smile, and for a moment, I believed everything would be okay. But then he would turn away, grab his keys, and disappear into the night again. When I met my husband, I think Liam felt like he was losing me too. My husband, Mark, was different. Calm, patient, quiet like the river that ran behind our town. He worked in finance, wore clean shirts that smelled of expensive cologne, and spoke in a low voice that made you want to listen. My parents adored him. They said he was stability, the kind of man who would never let me go hungry or scared. Liam didn't say much about him. He would sit at the dinner table, listening to Mark talk about his job, his plans, his dreams, and just nod silently, swirling his glass in his hands. But sometimes, late at night, he would pull me aside and whisper, "Don't let him change you, Kate. You're perfect the way you are." I didn't understand what he meant. Why would Mark want to change me? We were planning our wedding for the following summer. My mum was already collecting old lace for my veil, and Dad was building a wooden arch to place in the garden for the ceremony. Everything felt like a dream stitched together by careful, loving hands. But under that quiet happiness, there was an emptiness growing between me and Liam. He stopped coming around as often. When he did, he barely spoke to Mark. Their eyes never met for long. I thought it was just jealousy. Maybe he felt like he was losing his little cousin to a man who had become my entire world. But looking back now, I see it was more than that. It was the beginning of a story I never wanted to tell. Because sometimes, the people who love you the most are the ones who hide the darkest secrets. It happened on a Tuesday morning. I remember because Tuesdays were always slow for me. I worked from home, writing short articles and editing small projects for local businesses. Mark had already left for work before the sun came up, and the house was quiet, filled only with the ticking of the old kitchen clock. I was sitting at my desk, sipping my coffee, when my phone buzzed with a message. At first, I ignored it, thinking it was just another reminder for a deadline, but something inside me told me to check. When I opened it, my whole world fell apart in a single breath. There was a picture, a blurry photo taken from behind a car window. Mark and Liam, standing so close their faces almost touched. Mark was looking at him with eyes I knew too well, gentle, warm, filled with something deeper than friendship. Liam's hand rested on Mark's chest, fingers curled lightly into his shirt. I felt my chest tighten, my breath stuck somewhere between my ribs and my throat. My hands started shaking, so badly, I almost dropped the phone. For a few minutes, I just sat there, staring at that picture, thinking it was fake, that it had to be fake. But then I noticed the place in the background. It was the parking lot near the garage where Liam worked, a place I had been to hundreds of times. My first thought wasn't even anger. It was confusion. Why? Why them? Why together? Why behind my back? I didn't know what to do. My mind started spinning with memories. Small moments that suddenly felt heavy with hidden meanings. The way Mark never spoke badly about Liam, the way Liam always avoided Mark's eyes during dinner, the way they both seemed so tense when they were in the same room. It all made sense now, in a twisted, sickening way. I tried calling Mark, but he didn't answer. I tried calling Liam, but his phone went straight to voicemail. I sat on the floor, my back against the kitchen cabinet, staring at the cold tiles, as tears spilled down my cheeks. I felt like I couldn't breathe, like my heart was too big for my chest, and it was trying to break free, to run away from the truth it had just been forced to swallow. I didn't know who to call, who to trust, who to tell. My parents wouldn't understand. They loved them both too much. So I sat there, in that silent house that suddenly felt like a stranger's home, and I realized something that hurt deeper than the betrayal itself. I was alone. Completely, utterly alone. And in that moment, I wished I could just disappear, fade into the walls and become nothing, because being nothing seemed less painful than being someone whose life had just shattered into pieces too small to ever put back together. After that day, everything changed. I couldn't stay in the house anymore. Every corner smelled like memories of them. Like laughter I thought belonged to me. Like love that now felt rotten and cruel. I packed a small bag with trembling hands. Just a few clothes, my toothbrush, my journal, and the old photo of me and my parents standing in front of our house, back when life still felt simple. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. I didn't even know where I was going. I drove for hours, watching the sun melt into the horizon, leaving behind a sky that looked bruised and tired. I ended up in a small motel on the edge of the highway, the kind of place where no one asked questions, and the air smelled like old cigarettes and cleaning supplies. The room was tiny, with peeling wallpaper and a flickering lamp in the corner, but it had a bed and a lock on the door, and that was all I needed. For the first 2 nights, I barely slept. I lay awake, staring at the cracked ceiling, listening to the sound of trucks passing outside. Each time I closed my eyes, I saw them together, Mark's soft smile, Liam's eyes filled with something I couldn't even name. Was it love? Was it just betrayal? Was it both? During the day, I walked around the small town near the motel, wandering aimlessly down quiet streets lined with closed shops and dusty windows. I spent hours sitting on a bench near a tiny park, watching strangers pass by with coffees in their hands and worries on their faces. No one knew me there. No one cared. And somehow, that felt like safety. At night, I cried into the thin motel pillow until my throat burned and my eyes felt swollen shut. I thought about calling my mum, telling her everything, letting her voice soothe me the way it always did when I was a child, afraid of the dark. But every time I reached for the phone, I stopped myself. How could I tell her that the boy she loved like a son and the man she called her future son-in-law had both broken me in ways that words could never fully explain? So I stayed silent. Instead, I found a job, cleaning rooms in a nearby inn. It paid just enough to keep the motel room for another week, and buy simple meals, stale sandwiches, instant noodles, bottled water. Each morning, I woke up before the sun, pulled on the same jeans and grey sweater, tied my hair back, and scrubbed floors and bathrooms until my hands smelled like bleach and soap. No one there knew my name. They just called me girl, or hey you. But at least there, I didn't have to pretend I was okay. I could just exist, quietly, invisibly. And every night, when I lay down on that hard motel bed, feeling the ache in my bones and the emptiness in my chest, I told myself one thing, over and over like a prayer. I will not give up. Not today. Because even if my heart was shattered, even if I felt like nothing but broken glass scattered on a dirty motel floor, a tiny part of me still believed. One day, somehow, I would find a way to put myself back together again. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, the pain started to shift. It didn't disappear. It was still there, heavy and silent like a stone tied to my chest, but I learned how to carry it. I moved out of the motel when I saved enough from cleaning rooms. There was a small apartment above a flower shop on the edge of town. The owner was an older woman with soft grey hair tied in a bun. She didn't ask questions when I handed her the cash for the first month's rent. She just handed me the keys and said, "You look like you need a quiet place." And it was quiet. The apartment was small, just a bedroom, a bathroom, and a tiny kitchen with old wooden cabinets painted white. But it felt like mine. The first night I slept there, I lay on the mattress on the floor, staring at the cracked ceiling, listening to the faint smell of roses drifting up from the shop below. And for the first time, in what felt like forever, I felt a tiny flicker of peace. I still worked at the inn, but on weekends, I started helping out in the flower shop downstairs. I didn't know anything about flowers, but the owner, who told me to call her May, taught me how to trim stems, how to arrange bouquets, how to wrap ribbons gently so they didn't crush the petals. There was something healing about working with flowers. Their beauty was so quiet, so simple, so honest. They didn't pretend to be something they weren't. They just existed, blooming without apology. Slowly, my days started to feel less empty. I woke up before sunrise to watch the sky turn from black to pale blue, while I drank my coffee sitting on the fire escape. I learned how to cook small meals again, even if it was just scrambled eggs and toast. I started reading books I found in the free library box down the street, losing myself in stories that weren't mine, letting other people's words fill the spaces inside me that still felt hollow. And one evening, as I was closing the shop with May, she handed me a single white rose and said, "You're stronger than you think, Caitlyn. Whatever you're running from, you're already halfway past it." I wanted to tell her everything. About Mark, about Liam, about how love had turned into something sharp and poisonous inside me, but I didn't. I just took the rose, held it to my chest, and whispered, "Thank you." That night, I placed the rose in a glass jar on my windowsill, and as I fell asleep, I realized something. I didn't need them to come back and fix what they broke. I didn't need their apologies or explanations. For the first time, I felt like I was building something new, brick by brick, breath by breath. It wasn't much yet, but it was mine. And after everything I had lost, that felt like the greatest victory of all. It happened on an ordinary Thursday afternoon. I was at the flower shop, arranging a bouquet of sunflowers and lavender for an elderly man who said his wife loved purple and gold together. The shop smelled like fresh-cut stems and warm summer air drifting in through the open door. May was in the back, sorting boxes of vases, when I heard the chime above the door. I didn't look up at first. I just said my usual greeting. "Hi, how can I help you today?" But then a familiar voice answered, and every part of me froze. "Caitlyn." I lifted my head slowly. Liam was standing there. He looked different. Thinner, tired, like he hadn't slept in weeks. His hair was messy, and he was wearing the same old denim jacket I remembered from home. For a moment, neither of us said anything. The quiet between us felt like a glass wall I didn't want to break. Finally, he stepped closer, his eyes filled with something desperate and broken. "I've been looking for you," he whispered. I placed the sunflower bouquet down, my hands trembling slightly. "Why?" I asked, my voice quiet, careful, like if I spoke too loudly the whole moment would shatter. Because you need to know the truth." I didn't want to hear it. I wanted to turn away, walk into the back room, close the door, and pretend he was just another stranger passing through. But I couldn't. "What truth, Liam?" He swallowed hard, his eyes darting around like he was afraid of being overheard, even though the shop was empty. "It wasn't what you think," he said. "Me and Mark, we weren't having an affair." I felt my stomach twist painfully. "Don't lie to me," I whispered. "I'm not lying," he said quickly, his voice cracking. "Please, Kate, just listen. Mark came to me because he wanted to plan a surprise for you. He was buying an old car, your favorite model, to restore it for your birthday. He wanted it to be perfect, so he asked me to help him. That day, that photo you saw, he was just thanking me. He hugged me. That's it." The world around me tilted, blurred at the edges. "No," I said, shaking my head. "That can't be true. I saw the way you looked at each other." He stepped closer, tears filling his eyes. "I was looking at him like that because I was proud," he said. "Proud that you finally found someone who would do anything to make you happy. I loved you, Caitlyn. Not like that. Never like that. I loved you because you were my family. Because you were the only person who ever made me feel like I wasn't completely lost." My knees felt weak, and I grabbed the counter for support. "But why didn't you tell me before? Why didn't he call me back?" Liam wiped his face roughly with the back of his hand. "Because I was ashamed. After you left, Mark tried calling you every day. He came to my house, crying, begging me to tell him where you were. But I didn't know. And I was drinking a lot back then. I was angry at myself for letting you think something so terrible. I thought you'd be better off without any of us." Tears streamed down my face, hot and silent. For so long, I carried hate inside me like a weapon, using it to keep myself standing. And now, all that hate melted into something softer. Grief, regret, loss. I didn't know what to say. The only words that came out were small, broken, and honest. I don't know what to do with this now. Liam nodded, his shoulders shaking. I don't either, he whispered. But I needed you to know. You deserved to know the truth. 2 days later, I found myself standing outside Mark's office building. I hadn't planned it. My feet just seemed to carry me there, past crowded sidewalks and busy crosswalks, until I was staring up at the tall glass building where he spent most of his days. I didn't know what I was going to say. All I knew was that after hearing Liam's words, I couldn't keep running anymore. I walked through the revolving doors, feeling my heart pound so hard it almost drowned out the quiet music playing in the lobby. The receptionist looked up and smiled politely, but I barely saw her. When I stepped into the elevator, my hands were shaking so badly, I had to grip the metal railing to steady myself. As the numbers ticked higher, memories flooded my mind. His laughter on quiet mornings, the way his eyes lit up when he talked about his dreams, the way he used to kiss my forehead, like I was something precious. When the doors opened, I almost turned around and left. But I forced myself to step out, walking down the long hallway, until I reached his office. The door was half open. He was sitting at his desk, staring blankly at his computer screen, his shoulders slumped forward, in a way that made him look so tired, so defeated. For a moment, I just stood there, watching him. And then he looked up. Our eyes met, and I saw everything at once. Shock, relief, pain, hope. He stood up so quickly his chair rolled back and hit the wall behind him. Caitlyn, he breathed, his voice breaking on my name. I held up a hand to stop him from coming closer. Don't, I whispered. He froze, his eyes filling with tears. I thought I lost you forever, he said softly. I tried calling. I tried everything. I didn't know where you went. I thought you hated me. I swallowed hard, my throat burning. I did hate you, I said quietly, for a long time, because I thought you betrayed me in the worst way possible. He shook his head, tears spilling down his cheeks. I would never, he said, his voice trembling. I love you, Caitlyn. I was trying to surprise you. I wanted to give you something that showed how much I knew you, how much I saw you. I'm so sorry it turned out like this. I felt my own tears falling now, hot and silent. I don't know what to feel anymore, I whispered. Everything hurts, even this. Seeing you, it hurts. He stepped closer, slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. I know I broke something inside you, he said softly. I don't expect you to forgive me, but please, just let me be here. Let me show you that I still want you, exactly as you are, even if you never want me back. For a long moment, I said nothing. The room felt heavy with memories, and words left unspoken for too long. Finally, I took a shaky breath and looked him straight in the eyes. If I ever let you back into my life, I said, my voice quiet but strong, it will be on my terms, my pace, my conditions. Do you understand? He nodded quickly, wiping his face with the back of his hand, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Yes, he whispered. Anything. Just anything. I turned to leave, pausing at the door without looking back. I'm not saying yes, I said softly. I'm just saying, maybe. And then I walked away, leaving him standing there, broken and crying, while I stepped back into the world I was finally learning to claim as my own. After that day, I didn't see Mark for a long time. I needed space to breathe, to think, to find myself again outside of the love that had once defined me. He called sometimes, left quiet voicemails, telling me he hoped I was okay, that he missed me, that he loved me. I never answered. Instead, I spent my days working at the flower shop, learning how to arrange delicate white lilies and bright yellow daisies into something beautiful. May taught me how to care for orchids, how to cut their stems at an angle and spray them with water so their petals stayed soft and alive. In the evenings, I sat by my tiny window, drinking tea, listening to the sound of passing cars below, watching the sky melt from pale blue to dark navy, scattered with faint silver stars. Sometimes, I thought about Mark. I thought about his kindness, his quiet way of loving, his soft laughter in the mornings. But I also thought about the pain, about the months I spent alone in a motel room, crying myself to sleep, feeling like nothing but broken glass scattered across cold tile floors. Forgiveness didn't come easily. It came slowly, like the first light of dawn creeping over the horizon. One morning, I woke up and realized I didn't feel anger when I thought of him anymore. Just sadness for what we lost, and something softer, gratitude for what his love had taught me about myself. And so, I called him. His voice on the phone was quiet, shaking with emotion. "Caitlyn," he breathed, like my name itself was enough to break him open. "I'm not calling to come back," I said gently. "I'm calling to tell you, I forgive you. I know it wasn't your fault. I know you were trying to make me happy, but I can't come back. I'm not her anymore. I've changed, and I need to keep changing without you." There was a long silence, filled only with his quiet sobs. "I understand," he whispered finally. I'm glad you're okay. That's all I ever wanted." After the call, I sat on my fire escape, feeling the cool morning breeze brush against my skin, and for the first time in so long, I felt free. Truly, completely free. Now, months later, I still live above the flower shop. May gave me a raise and lets me order my own selections for the window displays. I spend my days surrounded by soft petals, gentle fragrances, and quiet music playing from the small radio near the cash register. I still wake up before sunrise, but now it's because I want to, not because nightmares force me out of sleep. Sometimes, I think about Liam. We talk occasionally. He's been sober for 3 months now, working full-time at the garage again. He says he's trying to become the man he used to be, the man who tied flowers into my hair and told me I was brave. And as for Mark, I hope he finds happiness. I hope he finds someone who can love him without the shadows of the past standing between them. But my happiness no longer depends on him, or anyone else. Because I've learned something through all of this. I've learned that love can be beautiful, but the love you build for yourself, the love that grows quietly inside you, like a stubborn wildflower through cracks in forgotten pavement, that is the kind of love that never leaves you. That is the kind of love that will always carry you home. And now, when I look in the mirror each morning, I see her, the woman who survived, the woman who was broken and rebuilt herself with trembling hands and tear-stained cheeks, the woman who is no longer afraid to stand alone, because she knows she is never truly alone when she has herself. They are still part of my past, but my future belongs only to me.